Well, if you're a believer like me in financial planning and the best in financial planning, well, I've got one of the best sitting to my right. Sitting at the right hand of, I better not say that. Lucia, Lyn Rowe is in the house, certified financial planner. How you doing, Lyn?
Good, great.
Did you happen to hear me talking about professional advice? The fact that the advice is out there in nationally syndicated programs like this, on television, 24 hours a day, on the internet, but still some 60% or so of the people who have access to all the information aren't using it, and even if they did use it, are making mistakes with it, still not doing planning. What up with that? You're in the planning business.
You know, you brought up a good point, Ray, when you talked about the scone. It's called accountability.
Talking about the scone that I ate on the way in?
Yes. I'll lecture you about that later.
I really shouldn't have done that, but
yeah.
What can I say? It was calling me.
It was calling you. I get it. But you know, that's why we have workout partners. That's why we have study partners. I mean, that accountability where you're actually talking to somebody about the things that you're doing and not doing, and you're getting that feedback, and you know that if you eat that scone, you're going to have to tell somebody. Sometimes that makes you pause for thought. And the same thing is true with your planning. If you know that you're going to be making decisions that are going to impact your finances, and there's nobody there to say, then you're more likely going to make those bad choices than if you know that there's going to be somebody sitting there saying, well, it's not the best choice. Here's another alternative.
Yeah, this is why Marie Osmond looks so good now. You see her on the commercials on television all the time. She looks great. She lost a lot of weight, but I can almost guarantee you that it's not just the Nutrisystem that she's eating.
No.
It's because they probably gave her almost a full-time nutritionist, partner, somebody to coach her, exercise genius, and all that stuff to help her along. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
And it's working. It's fantastic. It's working for her. She looks great.
Yep, and you made a good point. It's not that much more to have that advisor by your side telling you those things, because they can find ways to maybe increase your return, maybe cut your costs, those kinds of things, and pay for themselves.
Absolutely right. So here's one of the things that was written today, and I don't really know where. USA Today. Retirees embrace ways to stay put, aging in place. In fact, I think it was an AARP study that said it's no wonder retirees want to stay put. About 2/3, 65% of retirees say they're living in the best home of their lives. I can certainly identify with that now, getting up into the retirement age and the retirement mode. I don't want to move. People don't want to move.
No,
people want to stay put. But the chances are about 70% something's going to happen with that house to get it ready for post-retirement health care issues.
That's exactly right. You know, the people don't take into account that the insurance company, when you get that care coordinator that comes out when you put in a claim, that person comes out and evaluates your home.
But you're making an assumption that they bought insurance for this.
I am making that assumption.
So if they don't buy the insurance, nobody's coming out to fix the home for you.
Nobody's coming out. You or your kids somehow have to have the savvy to say, okay, what do we need to do? The doorway is not going to accommodate the wheelchair. How am I going to get in and out of here? You're going to have to help me get in and out. I mean, that gets old fast. Or what about when you're giving the shower or the bath and there's nothing to grab onto? Or what about the medical alert system? I mean, you're just thrust into this situation of being a caregiver, and that's not your job. And all of a sudden you're trying to think of all these things in addition to preparing the meals, making sure that the meals are in line with what that person can eat, and making sure they take their meds and then take them to the doctor. I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
Can we focus back on the house for just a second? Because I've had many people on the program in months past where they actually do this for a living. They go into houses and reconfigure them so that an individual in a wheelchair can reach certain things and so forth. I mean, there's a real science to it. Are you suggesting to me and the audience that if you buy a long-term health care insurance policy, that stuff like that's covered?
It is covered. The care coordinator, first thing that they do is, after they do the assessment and find out what you're capable of and what you're not capable of, and they help you do the written plan of care the insurance company needs to process the claim, they also look at the conditions. They look at, what you need in that house to make it more user-friendly for you and for your family at the times when the caregiver is not coming in, when the family's taking the other 2 shifts, for example. Like the shower or whatever. Like you're saying, make it a little bit easier for them to reach things. I mean, simple things like little grabber things where you can reach something without taking risks.
Let me ask you this. If you bought a $200 per day benefit, long-term health care insurance policy, and it costs $10,000 to reconfigure the home, does that come out of that $200 a day benefit, or is that over and above?
It comes out of the pool.
The pool. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah. Your pool of money is your pool of money. Let's say you got a $250 a day benefit, as Ray's saying, let's say it's $250, but you're only using $180 of it for the caregiver. Well, you've got excess that's staying in your pool, so you can actually stretch the pool. On the other hand, if you're using the maximum amount, then it's going to go for the time frame that you bought it. Let's say it's 4 years or whatever. So
it would reduce it possibly to 3 years?
Yeah, it might reduce it to, 3.9 years, you know. I mean, we're talking, most of those things can be done, like you said, for maybe $10,000.
But it wouldn't take the first $10,000. My point is, if your benefits are tantamount to $5,000 a month, you wouldn't go 2 months without any money.
No, you would not.
So there's this big pool of money.
Yes.
And it would sort of come off the back end.
Yep.
Very good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these are things that, frankly, I kind of, sort of knew a little bit about, but you're clarifying it for me. And I read about this stuff all the time. You would think that I would know off the top of my head everything that goes on, but I don't, because there's areas of specificity in financial planning, just like there is in money management.
Yes.
A small cap international manager may know a lot about small cap international stocks, but may not know squat about Procter & Gamble.
Exactly. Well, and it's the same thing, Ray, not just in financial planning, that long-term care and extended care specializations, but it's the same thing in the insurance world. I'm actually going to be meeting with another insurance agent after this. And that other insurance agent, he specializes in health insurance. So, we educate each other, but at the same time, there's only so much you can do. It's like going to doctors. You don't want the guy that took out your appendix operating on your brain. I'm sorry.
Well, there's some people that accuse me of having had that happen. 80%, it says here, 80% of retirees are interested in new technologies to reduce their home expense, such as smart thermostats or apps to control appliances. 76% are interested in technologies to monitor their health at home, such as sensors, alerts, or medication reminders. 67% are interested in home technologies to help them optimize their health, such as devices for air purification or to improve their sleep. And 58% are interested in technologies to help maintain their home, such as cleaning robots or heated driveways. We have a hard time relating to heated driveways here in San Diego. But many of these technologies would be covered by a long-term care, like the medical alert systems and so forth.
Medical alert systems, absolutely. It's all about your safety when you're at home. And 70% of the claims with all insurance companies across the nation are home care because people want to be at home.
All right, stick around. We're going to check in with Lyn Rowe again, and she's going to give us insights. I've got a whole list of questions right here for Lyn Rowe, certified financial planner. And I also want to ask her about working with a full-service broker or online. Which one's best? Don't go away. And welcome back, folks. I want you, Lyn Rowe, to explain to the audience everything they needed to know about long-term health care and a whole bunch more. Welcome back, folks, to the Ray program, 844-RAY-SHOW. If you have a question for Lyn Rowe, bringing us some really, really, really important information today. Lyn, you are the person in the know, the long-term care expert, and we've been talking over the months now about different ways to address the issue. There are traditional ways of addressing the issue of long-term health care, and there are popping up some non-traditional ways. Talk about that.
Well, the insurance industry is morphing, Ray. One of the concerns that everybody has, obviously, is keeping the cost down. How do I keep the cost down? How do I, keep my expenses low? And the insurance industry is addressing that in lots of creative ways. For example, we were just talking about this earlier. For a couple, for example, their kids are in college and they're having to pay some money out of pocket, but they want to get long-term care, but they want to keep the cost down. They could get, for example, with one carrier, they could get a lower cost of living adjustment now. And then when the kids move out, they can ratchet it up a little bit, and they can ratchet it up a little bit. And then they can stop it at some point in the future or even ratchet it back.
So how is that different from like traditional? Because I've got a 5% COLA on mine, which was really expensive.
Yes. What if you had started out with, say, a 2.5% COLA?
COLA is a cost of living adjustment.
Sorry. In other words, it keeps your coverage current with
inflation.
And so let's say you start out with a 2.5, and then when those expenses went away, the kids are gone, and you're looking at the cash flow and saying, well, we could, now would be the time we could do something. Then you could add, say, another 2% on top of that.
So that would have saved me a bunch of money, and certainly inflation has not been all that high, although healthcare inflation tends to be higher than the CPI, which is why we used a 5%. But for individuals that are concerned about inflation, but also concerned about their budget, this would seemingly make a lot of sense, especially if you're in that sandwich situation where you're still taking care of your kids and taking care of your parents and trying to economize.
And you've got to lock on the insurance while you're still healthy and insurable, but you have kept your costs down. And should something happen in the future and you can't pick up that, then you've got the coverage in place. You haven't lost that option.
You mentioned something during the break that I've never heard of. As I said earlier, I study this stuff for a living, and every week I learn something from Lyn Rowe. You said that if I have a business, here I am sitting with 4 or 5 other people running this little studio.
Right.
So if we're all working for the same employer, as it were, that 4 of us could get together and buy a group policy without involving the employer?
It's better than that. You can, each of you, get your own coverage, your own plans, which means it's portable, so it's not a group plan, so you don't have to worry about that part. But the 4 of you can get that same 5% group discount on top of what other discounts you might get because you work for the same employer. So yes, you're forming your own group, but you each have your own contract.
That's just unheard of. I've never heard of anything like that. It almost sounds like a sham where, hey guys, let's get together. We all need long-term care. Let's all form our own group. Forget the employer. We'll just go to the company and say the 4 of us are in and we're going to get a 5% discount. And then I would assume if I'm married, I get the discount to married couples, because I think I got a pretty substantial discount for Jeannie and I.
Huge discount, anywhere from 20 to 30% depending on the carrier. So it's there are ways to cut your costs phenomenally. I mean, I've had couples come to me and say, well, she's going to get it, I'm not, and I've shown them, here's her coverage without you, here's her coverage with you. It's for a few $100s more. We can add him. And because her costs came way down, that's crazy not to do that.
It's really good. I suspect this is why people need to work with a full service advisor that understands all of the ins and outs, as opposed to trying to do this stuff on their own. I mean, I discussed this in the first segment. It seems almost insane to me that people would opt to try to do something this technical and this sophisticated themselves, because as you well know, they can do it. You can go online and buy just about anything today, but do you know what you're buying? It's sort of like, let me go online and figure out everything from a sophisticated estate plan to a sophisticated financial plan to a sophisticated insurance plan to a sophisticated investment plan. I'll do it all myself. I don't need you. In fact, in the meantime, I'll take care of my appendicitis, and I'm going to build a house on the side.
And take care of my own teeth. Yeah, I mean, really and truly, with all due respect, this is a full-time job. It's a full-time job. Learning about the products, understanding how they work, helping people make correct decisions, looking at their circumstances and helping them to pick products that are more suitable for what their needs are. I mean, that's a full-time job. And to ask an individual who isn't even versed in the products, who doesn't get the kind of constant information I get bombarded with, it's just not, it's not going to work.
Lyn Rowe, by the way, was one of the preeminent retirement planners in her local area for a number of years. I don't want to say how many because that might date her a little bit. And you for all intents and purposes, gave up the retirement planning side of your practice to focus on healthcare. That means you're either a little slow on the uptake or it's just too consuming to be an expert in that particular field. I stayed until, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago on the retirement planning side, so I always relied on you and people like you to help me with long-term healthcare, because I found I couldn't stay on top of the retirement topics and still be an expert without doing a disservice to my clients.
And I hear this from brokers. I hear this even from other insurance agents. I don't even want to mess with it.
That was me.
I know.
Well, there's a liability if you mess with it.
There's a huge liability. And so, again, all due respect, if you're talking to your financial planner or your broker, I mean, they do other stuff full time, and then, oh yeah, I can help you with the long-term care insurance. Well, no, it's too important. I mean, at one of the most crucial parts of your life, when you are helpless, you want the best, and you want the best for you. So that's what I do.
All right, Lyn Rowe, certified financial planner, a full-service insurance broker that focuses strictly on post-retirement health care issues. I mean, that must include Medicare supplemental policies. I'm looking at that right now as we speak. I hate to say that I am, but I am. That's an important component in post-retirement health care. Long-term care, you've brought up a couple of suggestions in the past. There are individuals that may not have any issues with the so-called activities of daily living, but still can't get a policy at a reasonable cost. Talk about that.
Well, there are products where you can actually not have to qualify. I know that sounds a little strange, but that's...
You don't have to take a physical exam or answer the questions?
They don't even ask for your doctor's records. So the whole point being that it's a different paradigm. You got to shift that paradigm from buying long-term care insurance to buying hours at a discount. And it's a tremendous plan.
Well, yeah, that and of course, there's also these riders that you can put on life insurance policies nowadays that cover some of the more catastrophic things. But really, the expense, for the most part, comes down to what, 3 or 4 or 5 different ailments?
Really, it's heart and stroke, cancer, and Alzheimer's are the 3 biggest claims in long-term care world.
Yeah, cancer being a big one, of course. And I just heard, I should have been paying better attention, but I was flipping through and I heard a news report that said that they're working on some virus that they can inject into a melanoma, skin cancer, and reverse it. And that's a very deadly cancer if you don't catch it early. When you think about that, all of a sudden, your chances of living a lot longer increase tremendously.
Absolutely. I mean, things that used to kill people in the heart world. I mean, remember when we had our first heart transplant? I mean, now that's kind of like the norm. I talked to somebody the other day, they needed to go in and change the guy's batteries. So they went in on a pacemaker, they went in and changed his batteries and checked the hardware, and they said the hardware was just pristine. All they needed to do was change the battery.
Yeah, pretty incredible. Lyn Rowe, here's what I want you to do. You go to her website, iwantmyltc.net, and you can find out about these group discount programs. You can find about individuals that don't want to have to pass the physical and all that, how you can potentially afford long-term care. You can find out how you can add potentially a very inexpensive rider that would cover cancer or diabetes or heart disease for long-term health care. Or you can find out what a full-service long-term health care insurance specialist recommends and get a written financial plan for your post-retirement and pre-retirement health care. And you get that from one person that I know, and only one, Lyn Rowe, certified financial planner. Give out that phone number there, Lyn.
877-270-3127.
877-270-3127. Write it on your hand and call her a little bit later. Or just simply go to iwantmyltc.net. Tell whoever you're sending an email to that I sent you over there, and she'll give you special treatment with kid gloves. Right?
Kid gloves.
All right. Lyn Rowe, CFP. We'll talk to you next week.